welcome back to this week's episode of the Dead Air Records podcast. My name is Jess.
And I'm Mark.
And we are the hosts of this podcast and also the owners of Dead Air Records, which is an independent record shop based right here in the centre of Liverpool. This week's episode is a special one and a requested one, which is really exciting to work on.
Proper cool.
Yep. So this one is going to be a brief introduction, and we'll try to be brief.
Yeah.
On jazz, and it's going to be a bit of a 101. Definitely not like a comprehensive history on the genre. Specifically looking at the golden age of jazz, which was around what era?
So we're going to be focusing on the period of 1950 to 1970, roughly around that era.
So we're going to be looking at musicians specifically in the 50s and 60s and then taking it right up to date and looking at some of the artists that are still trailblazing that genre and keeping it alive.
Awesome. So I think we should probably start by saying we're by no means experts on jazz.
No.
I think we should get that out there.
You're a massive fan.
I'm a fan, but by no means an expert. I have met some experts, and let me tell you, I am not one of those people. But I am an avid fan, and I want to just kind of try and help other people, get into the genre. And
I think one thing about the genre as well is it can be quite hard to get into for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
So sometimes it has the perception of being a little bit highbrow.
Yeah. So there's the idea that you kind of need to understand jazz to enjoy it. And I just think because of that, it gatekeeps it for a lot of people. But the whole point of jazz that it's supposed to be accessible for everyone. So the title of the video should be Jazz is for Everyone.
Yeah.
That's really what we want to get across on this episode. So some things to understand about jazz really going into it. Most people are used to like the westernized classic song structure of verses and choruses and things like that. And that doesn't really happen in jazz. And that can be something that kind of pushes people out of it. You know, they're not used to the structure of it. So rather than thinking about it in a normal song sense, we should kind of think about jazz in like a theme and then some solos in the middle where all the musicians are trying to show off, and then another theme to end it off with, you know? So jazz has multiple subgenres, just like any other genre, like dance music. Dance music is full of subgenres. It's the same with jazz. So when you hear people talk about jazz, it's not some sort of big one thing, you know, there's multiple genres that you can get into. Some people like different things like the more fusion era, which is post 1970s, which we're not going to be talking about today, maybe next time. But yeah, we are going to talk about the classic era, and we really want to kind of get across that it's not highbrow. It came from really working class backgrounds. It was meant for people. And it's kind of has to some degree been hijacked by intellectualists who, you know, want to be snooty about it to some degree. And that's fine also. But ultimately, it's by the people and for the people. So that's what we're going to do.
Amazing. Yeah. So to give us some sort of structure to this as well, we're going to be looking at 5 record labels in particular. And that's Blue Note, Impulse, Prestige, Verve, and Riverside.
Great
and
labels.
Then we're going to go through a little bit of the history in that framework, and then you've selected some albums from each of those labels that kind of give you an idea of what shaped that label, the artists that came out of that movement and era.
Yeah, ultimately I'm trying to pick albums that, you know, are quite listenable, just easygoing albums that will help people sort of, find their way into the genre.
So this is a really nice entry point. So if you are new to jazz, wanting to sort of like learn more about the genre and kind of get into it, these are going to be a selection of albums that we would recommend as a starting point to try. These
are ones that probably helped me get into it. Ones that sort of helped me navigate my first sort of entry into it. And, I've definitely learned a lot over the years of listening to it and found what I like and what I don't like. And I find some more of the avant-garde stuff a little bit. Even now, I can't listen to it. But I think these are safe bets that will help people, understand and get into the basics of it. Yeah.
Nice. And I guess like a large part of that as well as the artwork. So it's going to be really nice to have a look through these as we go through them. But we've got a lot of albums to get through.
Yeah.
We haven't got much time.
Okay.
So
Shall
we kick off?
Okay. So, all right, we're going to start off with Blue Note. Blue Note Records was founded in 1939 by German Jewish immigrants fleeing the beginnings of Nazi Germany and heading to the USA. They were already madly in love with the genre that they found in Germany. But when they got to New York, they found a completely different style of jazz, something that they hadn't seen before. And they were broke. Alfred Lyon and Francis Wolff were living under bridges in New York, absolutely broke, and would keep on going to these what would you call them, like clubs, underground clubs,
underground jazz clubs,
where the music's getting made. And the myth is that he was gonna call his label later on Black and Blue Note because he kept on getting beaten up. So Alfred Lyon, he found a lot of similarities between his situation in New York and the African American community. As a Jewish immigrant, he found that he was also like, he went to New York with the idea of all inclusive, everything's going to be great. And he was shocked by the situation of African Americans there. And he drew similarities with Jewish immigrants there as well. And so he had an affinity towards them. Anyway, long story short, he founded this label, one of the best labels of all time, with his best mate, Francis Wolff, who was a photographer who took all these amazing pictures, along with some other compatriots, Reed Miles and the legendary Rudy Van Gelder, producer. And they made these amazing albums. The reason they're incredible is because Alfred understood the artists and would pay them to rehearse in
which
the
was
session.
Unheard of at the time.
Didn't happen anywhere, right? So he would pay them to rehearse, and he would open the studio at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, because a lot of the musicians were working in clubs and would finish at like God knows what time, and then he would come over to Hackensack, which is where the studio was, and he would open up the studio, pay them to rehearse. They'd be drinking drugs and stuff like that, and there would be a good time. But the rehearsals basically made it so that they had these amazing performances. It wasn't just in and out. It was really good.
There was really the investment in people's practice and expertise, and supporting that in order to get the best performance out of it as well.
And so, look, I'm not going to go on too much about the history. I don't want to do the history of jazz. I'm not qualified, but I just want to give the background to Blue Note Records. So some of the Blue Note records we've chosen are the legendary Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers' Moaning, which has a performance by Lee Morgan, who died really young, who's a trumpet player. And it's just incredible. Honestly, you should check it out. Moaning. That is a really just incredible, legendary record. Just on a side note, Blakey would he was a drummer, and he was ending up like funneling loads of new musicians through the Jazz Messengers, who would later go on to be absolutely incredible artists in their own right. So it was kind of like a route for a lot of musicians to come through the system, you know. We have Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers Moaning. We have the Horace Silver Quintet Finger Poppin'. It's just a great name, isn't it? Again, Horace Silver, pianist, just really straight up, straightforward, really good half an hour of bebop, cool bop, I should say. So there's that. We have Dexter Gordon's Getting Around. And it's important. I mean, just look at these pictures and the album cover designs. They're just absolutely incredible.
There's definitely like a clear aesthetic that goes across all of them, like with the colours that they choose, and we'll kind of go through a range of that as well. But the design was really particular around the label.
Really was. And it's become legendary. Francis Wolff, as I say, was the photographer counterpart to Alfred Lyon, who was the producer, you know? So really cool stuff. Then we have Una Mas by Kenny Dorham. Just again, Kenny Dorham was a trumpeter again, just awesome. These are all just great albums. I don't want to give too much on each one. I'm just like, these are recommendations that we could safely say are bangers, basically. So Freddie Hubbard, Ready for Freddie, a classic.
I do quite like there's quite a lot of puns in their titles as well.
Do you know there are throughout jazz, there are a lot of puns in the names. Miles Smiles and
John
Ready
Coltrane,
for Freddie.
they really rode the
training in.
Yeah.
They really focus on that kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. And then we have Idle Moments by Grant Green, and that's the last one we're going to talk about with regards Blue Note.
And these are the photographs you talk about when you talk about Francis Wolff.
Yeah.
And then sort of in this duo tone where there's a wash of colour in it as well.
Yeah, just beautiful. And as I say, the artwork for Blue Note specifically, I mean, all the labels we're going to talk about, the artwork is incredible, but specifically with Blue Note, there's something magical about all the images. And, when you have when you get to look at them in retrospect, they just look incredible. I absolutely love them. So,
and would you say that's your favourite label?
This is probably my favourite label of all time. So, but yeah. So that's Blue Note. Those are some records that we can suggest with Blue Note. But as I say, we're not trying to give the history. We're not experts, but these are some really easygoing, straightforward jazz records to get into from Blue Note.
And those are the artists that are kind of associated with that label as well. There are a few artists that worked with different labels over that era, but I think for the
most part,
certain artists were sort of shaped by that label and the scene around it.
They did kind of cross over, but they kind of tried to stay with one label. Like, for instance, Miles Davis worked with multiple different ones, but so cool. So should we move on?
Yeah.
We're trying to keep it brief. I could talk about them for hours, to be honest, but yeah, we'll kind of keep it brief. So Riverside. Okay. So founded in 1953 by Orrin Keep News and Bill Grauer, was initially a reissue label for early jazz and blues recordings before evolving into a major force in modern jazz. The label became known for signing and producing some of the most important jazz artists of all time, including Thelonious Monk, Bill Evans, Wes Montgomery, and Cannonball Adderley. So we will have a look over that now. So as a producer, Orrin Keep News, he had a hands-on approach, fostering kind of like a creative, artist-friendly environment that led to classic albums like Bill Evans, Sunday at the Village Vanguard, and Thelonious Monk, Brilliant Corners. But unlike Blue Note's signature polished production, Riverside had kind of like a really raw, intimate feel, often kind of capturing a more looser kind of feel, right? More spontaneous. Again, there's no rehearsals really, so it was kind of on the
capturing the session and what was kind of happening there and then. Yeah,
like there maybe be multiple takes of the same thing, but a lot of the time it would be in and out in one sitting, So we will talk first about the legendary Brilliant Corners by Thelonious Monk. I only recently acquired this record. Stunning, angular, spiky.
You played this the other night and it definitely feels a bit more experimental, but it's still very listenable.
I think with Thelonious Monk, he tried to stand out from the crowd by kind of playing discordant, broken chords, Yeah. And so you really feel kind of like it's a little bit spiky, a little bit like, I don't know how to describe it, but this is a classic record. On most people's top 20, I would say.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's cool. Then we've got Chet Baker in New York. Really easygoing, nice vibes, proper lovely record. Chet Baker's West Coast kind of stuff was just amazing, but this one in particular, his first entry on Riverside.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And he's trumpet player.
I am a bit biased towards trumpet players. It's my favorite instrument when it comes to jazz. I just kind of love it when they cut in with a jazz solo, and trumpet's incredible. So we have Cannonball Adderley and Milt Jackson. This is Things Are Getting Better. Again, bright, breezy, quick, good times, not too hard to get into, but a good recommended one.
And with Milt Jackson as well, who's one of my favourite jazz musicians.
What instrument does he play, Jess?
The vibraphone.
The vibra. Yeah, it's dead good.
Very nice. If you're looking for something very chilled, Milt Jackson's your one.
He's the one.
He's great. We'll get on to more Milt Jackson.
We'll talk about Milt in a bit. So we were talking about Art Blakey and the crossover of artists onto different labels.
Yeah.
So this is Art Blakey's Caravan.
Some nice images on the back of this one as well, the session.
Proper classic record. Again, most of these are from our personal collection at home. Great album.
But then also we have quite a lot of the reissues in the shop as well, because Blue Note are amazing at reissuing things from the master tapes, from the analog tapes, and Kevin Gray masters them as well. So that's part of they do different series of those. So we do get a few sort of rare jazz records in the shop, but most of the time that we work with the label to get those proper quality reissues,
classic reissues,
which we'll get onto as well in a little bit as
we
well.
have,
No spoilers.
Don't get ahead.
Sorry.
So we have Bill Evans' Interplay. Again, Bill Evans was a big draw for the Riverside label. But yeah, just a great album, really chill. Again, not too hard to get into. Just a lovely record. I'm just going to say the same thing about all of these records. Really lovely record.
This is a great record.
Awesome record.
I think what's nice, as I've had a bit of looking at the backs of them as I pass them along, is unlike the Blue Note ones, these ones do have more pictures of them recording in the session, which I think lends itself to the sound that you were saying. It's more improvised, a little bit more raw and spontaneous, and you kind of get that feeling with the way that they've presented that on the back as well.
For sure.
The stack's getting bigger. We'll move on.
It is. Right. So next we are moving on to...
Oh, sorry.
Next we're moving on to Impulse.
Yeah.
Okay. So Impulse, just a real quick background. Founded in 1960 by Creed Taylor, quickly earning the tagline, "The house that Train built."
John Coltrane.
Due to deep association with John Coltrane. So, After Taylor left, Bob Thiele took over as producer and helped shape the label's adventurous, boundary-pushing approach, including the release of Coltrane's legendary "I Love Supreme," which we've spoken about before, which I haven't brought with me because I didn't want to go over the same things over and over again.
But if you do want to find about that, I think it was a couple of episodes ago, maybe 5 or 6, we shared a lovely first press of Love Supreme. So if you're interested in having a look at that, go back and check that out. Yeah.
So what signifies a Impulse record, Jess? What's one of the main signifiers?
It's got a lovely orange spine down the side of it.
Yeah. There's orange and black color scheme, which was way different to everything else, which I think we can... Yeah. So when you've got them in your collection, it's very easy to sort of see where they're at.
Yeah, maybe I'll hold them up all together when we've gone through them because they look really nice as like a little library of jazz records.
Yeah. So we'll go through these real quick. These are some of the ones that we recommend from the Impulse label. So this is the John Coltrane Quartet. The album's Crescent. It's really cool. We have... Charles Mingus, who's probably one of my all-time favorite musicians, bass player. Again, with Charles, he can go off into the avant-garde and it can get a little bit much, but this was originally intended to be a ballet. It's only 4 tracks, but it's stunning. Kind of reminds me of the Taxi Driver soundtrack.
Okay.
It's kind of got that moody kind of vibe to it. It's really cool.
But I think that's what also Impulse became known for, wasn't it? Being a bit more avant-garde, being a bit more like spiritual jazz. Yeah. That was how they kind of carved out their place in the jazz world.
It was very much like some of the... So for me, I do love Impulse and I love the recordings, but some of it is too much for me because it is like it did push the boundaries and did really forge that sort of avant-garde kind of thing, which is cool, you know. Although it declined in the late 70s, Impulse has been revived recently, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But they are probably now at the forefront of jazz with regards to who they're pushing and like what the current position of the label is. So, and
I guess that's how that experimental has continued to push that. Then,
they've really stayed supporting modern jazz, which is really cool. So we have Oliver Nelson, The Blues and the Abstract Truth. Again, a really cool record. I'm just saying the same thing for everyone, but ultimately, all these records are just really cool, really easy to get into.
And this has got Paul Chambers, Eric Dolphy, Bill Evans, Freddie Hubbard on, so artists we've already mentioned in previous ones.
And it's a big ensemble album, but yeah, really cool. Yeah. This one is Duke Ellington and John Coltrane. So Ellington, as he got older, he worked with younger artists to kind of try and stay fresh, I guess. But this has the best version, I think, of In a Sentimental Mood. It's just lovely. Yeah.
And finally,
we're going to talk about Out of the Cool by the Gil Evans Orchestra. Gil Evans, he was the guy that did a lot of Miles Davis's orchestra albums. So Miles did maybe like Birth of the Cool and Miles Plus 19. So he went through a phase of maybe doing like orchestra albums. Sketches of Spain was another one. So this one, really nice, really kind of low key. It's a lovely album just to have on a Sunday afternoon. Or so that's a great album.
Nice. Should I put them all together for those spans?
Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah.
Real cool.
Yeah, we've got some few more impulses in here later on that are more modern that we'll get to.
That's cool. So next, we are going to talk about the Prestige label. So Prestige was founded in 1949 by Bob Weinstock and became one of the most important independent jazz labels of the 50s and 60s. Unlike Blue Note, which paid for rehearsals, Prestige was known for its looser, more spontaneous recording sessions, often capturing in a single take, which is crazy if you think about it. But yeah, the label recorded some of the earliest and most influential works by Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, Thelonious Monk, just all the big guys basically. So yeah, grittier, rawer, compared to the Blue Note, Rudy Van Gelder recordings and stuff like that. So, but it has one of the biggest extensive back catalogues in jazz. Madness.
Yeah, I think we were trying to find out just how large that back catalogue was, but it's impossible to quantify.
It's huge. It's absolutely massive. So we'll just talk real quick about a couple of these records. We're going to talk about Coleman Hawkins' Soul. Hawkins came out of Duke Ellington's big band. It's such a lovely record, honestly. Really soulful, as the name would suggest. And yeah, just dead nice. Next, we're going to talk about Milt Jackson, the Milt Jackson Quartet, which is probably one of your favorite ones.
Yeah.
Very vibey. Yeah.
Literally, vibraphone.
Yeah, vibraphone. Very cool.
Very nice.
Yeah. It's a lovely album. It's only about half an hour long, a real easy listen to get through. Again, I like listening to this kind of stuff after work or on a Sunday morning or, you know.
Yeah, and you've got Horace Silver on the piano as well.
Yeah, it's just gorgeous.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Dream team.
Dream team. Jackie McLean, 4, 5 and 6. Stunning. Just a great album again.
Donald Byrd on trumpet, Hank Mobley on tenor sax.
Oh my God.
Arthur Taylor on drums.
Just incredible. Oh my God. Yeah. It's just weird. A lot of these musicians, you see, they would go from group to group to group, and it wasn't really thought of. Like we look at an album and we're like, oh, it's Miles Davis All Stars or whatever, which is the next one we're going to talk about. But really, these were session players who were just working with each other, and it was like cooperative, and you know they would be classed. There would be a band leader, but a lot of the time they're all working with each other. For different labels and
I guess learning from each other, developing their own musicianship, and
trying to stand out from each other, trying to do different things. But yeah, like Miles Davis worked with everyone. I mean, Herbie Hancock, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, like all of these people, they all work together, and it's just a beautiful thing.
And also spanned a lot of decades as well, and many, many, many different subgenres that we spoke of at the top of the show.
I mean, Miles later in life was asked, why won't you go back and do the earlier stuff? Like when he was wearing his leopard print, fedora and leopard print, like leggings, and was doing rock albums with samples and things like that. He was asked, why won't you ever go back and do like Kind of Blue? And he was just like, because that's done. Like we did that, and it like we nailed that. and it's done and it's the past. I'm interested in going forward. And I think that was the thing with Miles Davis. He was always thinking like, what next?
Yeah. How can I push the genre more? How can I like incorporate more of this?
And he never went back. Like every iteration of what he did was something brand new. So all the way to the end, and some of those later albums like are a little bit dubious. I played you a couple and you were like, actually I really like this, and I was like, oh yeah, it's actually quite nice.
Yeah, because you are a big fan of this era of jazz, and obviously and some more of the contemporary stuff we'll get onto as well, but and then you played it and I was like, actually this is what I like a little bit more in terms of Miles Davis, which is a little bit different to you.
Bit of 90s dance, and like it's kind of a bit weird, but
but then I love a bit of jazz and dance.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly.
I love a bit of fusion.
And then we have Sonny Rollins with the Modern Jazz Quartet. Great. Again. Ooh.
Sorry, it was all that talk of jazz and dance.
Jazz and dance. All right. But yeah, another great album. So really, that's it with Prestige. We just want to, as I say, we're just trying to keep it brief, just show you some albums from there, show you the artwork, and just really, these are just quick recommendations for you to get your teeth into.
For sure. And maybe we'll, not all of them, but we'll put like a selection of tracks onto the playlist you can go and listen to as well, which we always put in the show notes from the podcast.
Good
or
show.
Maybe we'll make a jazz specific playlist.
Maybe
we'll do both. Let us know if you want like a jazz specific playlist that has some selected tracks of all these albums.
Yeah.
Let us know. Put it in the comments either on YouTube or on social media, or we can add a couple of selected tracks on our usual playlist too.
Sounds good.
Nice.
Excellent. All right, last label. Let's do it. We're doing Verve. Okay. By the way, these aren't the only labels. There's loads of other labels that we could talk about, but these are the ones that I just thought would be the most accessible, the ones that, we had enough in the collection to talk about.
And I guess when we're talking about jazz and that era of jazz, they kind of set up the structure for all the things that would come later down life and in history with that. Yeah,
and I kind of wanted to lean more into labels that kind of went specifically jazz. I mean, Verve definitely later had Velvet Underground and, definitely loads of other artists on there. But, Prestige was mainly jazz to start off with, Blue Note specifically jazz. And, but there are other labels out there, of course, RCA Victor, Atlantic, loads of others. So before people start getting me in the comments, of course, there are other labels, but we only have a limited amount of time, and I wanted to speak about these ones specifically. So.
Yeah, and if there are certain albums that you think we've missed or you'd like us to explore a little bit more, maybe we'll do a Jazz 102 to follow up to this.
Sounds 101. Great. Yeah, of course. Okay, we're going to talk about Verve then. This is probably your favourite album, I think. Your favourite jazz record?
Yes, I love this album. This is Getz Gilberto.
Lovely. So Stan Getz with João Gilberto, I think I got that right, and Astrid Gilberto doing vocals on it.
Yeah,
the girl from Ipanema, and it's just a lovely Latin kind of samba,
bossa nova style.
Bossa nova. Yeah. So really cool, and
it really brought like sort of like bossa nova to the US and kind of popularized that as well as a genre.
It's a lovely album. Yeah. And then we've got Oscar Peterson Trio with Milt Jackson and Very Tall. I think Milt has come across a few of these labels.
Thank you for including him as much as possible.
Yeah. Cool. And then we have Oscar Peterson Trio, Night Train, another classic. Oscar Peterson being the pianist. Just great. That's a really bluesy album. Very accessible, really cool to listen to. I'll look at the artwork on this one.
Oh, this is really nice.
Yeah. Belter. Lovely.
It's very different artwork to everybody else.
Yeah. I kind of love it. That's one of my favorite albums. Yeah. It's really nice. And then we have one again that I've just recently acquired. That is the Ben Webster Quintet. Soulville. Great. Yeah. Just a really cool one. Right. We're through. We've got through all of the recommendations. That's quick.
As we say, that was just a brief introduction, although pretty thorough, guessing by the
stack of records that you have there.
Here.
Okay.
I think ultimately what we're trying to get across is that like jazz is for everyone. There's loads of subgenres. If you've ever kind of been put off by it because of it is such a broad genre, then maybe give a couple of these albums a listen or a couple of tracks and see what you think.
I think these are real safe bets if you're just looking forward to getting into it. And, you know, they're albums that when I was starting out really helped me fall in love with the genre. So,
and if you're thinking about collecting jazz records, we were going to have a little chat about some record collecting advice on that from one person that has made some sort of mistakes and learnings from collecting jazz records since you've been collecting records. So do you have any advice for people on that? Yeah.
So, okay. So there are some companies out there who have pressed, because a lot of these albums are out of copyright now. Okay, so the copyright's expired. So what that means is that companies can repress these albums from CD or from MP3. And so the quality is actually pretty dire. The pressings are bad and the quality sounds pretty poor. But I can understand why it's tempting to buy these albums. So the ones I'm specifically shaming here would be DOL, Jazz Wax, Wax Time, and Jazzwise. Now, it's very tempting for new collectors to go for these albums because they often retail for about £15 or something like that. And, you know, when you compare that to buying originals, like, you know, you can spend 40 to 50, 60. Oh, I mean, you can spend hundreds of pounds, but like, you know.
Or even any other record, like records are generally getting more expensive in the kind of economy that we're in. We try to keep it as affordable as we can here with a range of like secondhand and competitive pricing. But when you are sort of see like a 14, 13, 15 pound record,
it's tempting, right? Of course it is. And but ultimately it doesn't give you a good listening experience. And I kind of feel like it's good to advise people to kind of, you know, there are other reissue companies out there who do fairly cheap records, but they're banging. Right?
Like the Blue Note series that we talked about before. I think they go for around sort of £23-25. So just for like even £10 less or more.
And the sound quality in comparison to say the DOLs or the Jazz Wax and the Wax Times, like
infinitely better,
unbelievably different. And you know, for me, I bought tons of these when I started collecting, and like it was only when I got like an original and I compared the two sounds, like you actually hear how drastic it is. It's crazy.
So I guess what the price point does though, it does give an accessible way into it. So please do whatever you need to do to make it accessible and get into record collecting. But if you're kind of have a little bit of budget to go a little bit more, maybe just invest in those and then they'll last a longer lifetime in your collection.
They sound so much better.
And they hold their value a lot more as well.
But as long as you're listening to music, you know, I'm happy.
Exactly.
You know?
As long as you're listening to jazz music.
As long as you're listening to jazz. So we're just going to touch on the current day and who are the players who are like keeping the flame alive, basically.
And also kind of crossing over different genres with jazz as well to keep it experimental.
So the house that Train built, which is Impulse, is now basically Shabaka Hutchins' label. So the house that Hutchins is holding. It's terrible. That was awful.
Copyright that immediately.
So Shabaka Hutchins is just one of the most amazing jazz musicians who is currently out there, and although he currently quit sax, he's now released a flute album which is so good.
He's retired one instrument and gone straight into woodwind,
and it's just incredible. Honestly, if you get a chance to listen to that, please. But here are some of the Shabaka Hutchins Impulse albums. There was Sons of Kemet, Your Queen is a Reptile, really good, upbeat, vocal in places, just amazing. Behind that we have Shabaka and the Ancestors, and the other one is The Comet is Coming, which we actually had the privilege to go and see that.
We saw them twice actually. We saw them at Invisible Wind Factory, which was incredible, and the crowd was amazing, and it was
like a rave.
It was like a jazz rave, and the energy was so good. But then we saw them like a month later at Factory International. So we saw them twice on that tour, which is in Manchester, and the crowd wasn't it.
It was
so in terms
wildly
of
different, yeah.
Liverpool versus Manchester crowds,
Liverpool.
it was we would always say that anyway. But
Yeah.
to have a direct example of the same band on the same tour in two different cities,
It was crazy.
It was
different.
wildly different.
Yeah. What I love about that as well is we have with The Comet Is Coming was the first time I'd ever seen in jazz a synth solo, which was just again like futuristic and just ahead of its time. But
and I guess for me, this is where you've always been a massive jazz fan.
Yeah.
I have listened to it a lot because of you, because of being at home. But Comet Is Coming, Shabaka Hutchins, and some of the other albums we'll get onto, those have been my entry points really. And then going back and understanding where some of those structures and sounds and ways that the songs flows, where they come from. So I've kind of gone from now to the past in terms of my learning of jazz rather than starting from the beginning.
Yeah, which is so cool. I think that's amazing. Because I kind of forced jazz upon you, like in a way, because everywhere
it's a hostage situation.
Yeah, everywhere I went, it was kind of jazz. But you've definitely, I've seen you like get into it through the modern jazz stuff, which I really appreciate, you know. And then what have we got next? We've spoken about this.
The
Ezra
only jazz
Collective.
band to sell out the Wembley Arena.
Just incredible. The fact that they're managing to do that is just brilliant.
Yeah. Probably the largest jazz band operating in the UK at the moment. So yeah, Ezra Collective, super popular in the shop as well. Yeah. Amazing. You will have heard of them, but if you haven't, go listen.
So then we are talking about International Anthem, which we've spoken about on the podcast.
So we've got Jeff Parker here.
Yeah, and so that's his latest album, which just came out. And we've got Mackay McCraven, which is stunning. So that's basically some modern jazz albums that we can recommend.
Yeah, a couple of shout outs to like Nala Sanefro as well, and Nubaya Garcia.
Yeah.
Which we don't have in the shop sadly because they're sold out, but great albums as well to check out for modern jazz.
Yeah. Kamasi Washington as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
So that is our jazz wrap up.
Oh God, well, there was a lot to get through.
Yeah. I think I feel like you need like a pint of water after that to wet the whistle.
Yeah. I hope we did it justice. I know it was really quick, but like, I think that was a good exercise. Right?
We'll see. Let us know. But what we wanted to do, because if you're listening to this, hopefully you're interested in jazz or kind of like wanting to develop your jazz collection. What we do have, which is really exciting, is a little giveaway. Mm-hmm. So we've put together 3 jazz albums that we'd love to give away to someone who's wanting to build their collection. And we also have this amazing large print from Dorothy, who are a Liverpool-based graphic design studio. So Dorothy are responsible for the mapping of Liverpool's music scene, which is this print behind us. They also do these incredible things where they map out the genres and the history of the genres. So they've done like a disco one, which they've done recently. They've done like electronic music, but then they've also done jazz. We'll get a nice picture to put up on the podcast because this tube doesn't do it justice. But yeah, they've very kindly given us this jazz blueprint,
which is amazing.
Great name. Yeah. To give away as well. So, and that covers everything from some of the artists that we talked about, and it takes us all the way up to people, like Shabaka, Robert Glasper, Ezra Collective, Mackay McCraven.
Yeah.
And it also maps out some of the jazz clubs as well in history and who were responsible for having those artists play on their stages. So like Birdland, Sunset Cafe, Milton's Playhouse, and then some of the labels we've talked about as well, but also some other ones like Acid Jazz Records and Tomorrow's Warriors, which is a jazz initiative we talked about previously as well. So gorgeous print. Dorothy are great. Friends of the shop.
Yeah.
If you haven't checked them out yet, go and look at their website because they've got loads of great prints for different genres as well.
What's
great
the website?
Gifts. So go check them out. They are wearedorothy.com and they are We Are Dorothy across socials as well. So yeah, one large jazz print for the giveaway. And what albums do we have to give away? We are giving away Mingus. I think you put an extra Mingus in there, but we'll go for it. Mingus. It's 5, right? Yeah. 5 Minguses. We are giving away a Song for My Father by the Horace Silver Quintet, which is a lovely Latin jazz album on the Blue Note label. And we are giving away Miles Davis Volume 1, which happens to be probably one of my all-time favorite jazz records on the Blue Note label. So I'll stick those in here. Excellent. So if you fancy winning those 3 records and the print from Dorothy, then in this episode on YouTube, just comment below and then we'll pick a lucky winner and we'll get in touch with you. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, please.
Awesome.
Great.
This week's Across the Counter, we're going to keep it on theme.
Nice.
We're going to talk about some jazz albums that came across the counter and went home.
Guilty.
But yeah, so we'll talk first about Hustlin' by Stanley Turrentine, a lovely first press. So yeah, Stanley Turrentine worked with his partner on this album. So Shirley Scott, I think, was his partner. And this is a New York, USA label, which basically signifies, like, Blue Note's labels are a thing to study, right? As they developed over time, they moved addresses, so the labels always kind of changed. So the New York USA label, which that one is, and when I'm talking about New York USA, I'm talking about the thin piece of text that says Blue Note Recordings Inc., New York USA. That kind of changed over time.
Yeah.
We're going to show you an earlier one in a moment.
Nice.
But
it's
yeah,
a great way for kind of finding out how old or rare your pressing is as well.
Yeah, like you can pretty much, like, if you know your labels with Blue Note, you can age them. You can pretty much look at a label and say, I know what period of time this came from. So the New York USA, for instance, is between 1962 and 1966. So yeah, that basically ended. That was the end of the Playstyle era, and you know, his association with the label, Alfred Lyon's association with the label, ended shortly kind of after that. So,
okay. So with that label or before, then it is sort of Alfred Lyon's time at Blue
period
Note.
of time, yeah. Like he really ended his contract with them in 1970, and he was done by that point. But ultimately, he started handing over control around that time, and it went to Liberty Recordings and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, too much detail.
How would you describe the sound of this album?
It's a cool bop record, which just means it's fun. To me, it's just a fun, bluesy kind of record, you know? But just to have an early pressing of that is just stunning. So it's a US pressing. It's you can tell that by the feel of the sleeve and the flip back, and yeah, it's really nice, stunning. So that is one of them that came over. This next one is super special. This is,
I'll be very careful with it.
yeah, it's pretty delicate. This is widely regarded as the greatest jazz album of all time. If you look on most lists, everyone will say Kind of Blue is probably top 2, and it is a great record. This is a UK first pressing. In the UK, it came out on Fontana. It was in America released on Columbia, I think. And yeah, that's the Fontana label. It's in a bit of a VG condition, which means it has some slight marks on it and stuff like that, but actually it plays beautifully. But yeah, one of the most important jazz albums of all time, first UK press. That's dead nice.
And you tend to find as well, sometimes you can have a look at a record and you're like, oh yeah, it's got loads of marks on it, but like, and then you can play it and you absolutely don't hear anything at all.
It's definitely a product of the time, right? So I tend to find like 60s records can be absolutely trashed in some cases, and then you stick them on and it's like there's no marks on them whatsoever. In fact, some Beatles records are renowned for that. You know, they can have a lot of what they call surface wear, but actually when you play them, they sound incredible. So this next record we're going to talk about, this was a gift from you, actually. So it didn't really come across the counter. This is just something. Yeah.
This is a bit of a cheat.
This is a cheat, but this is a gift that you got me for Christmas one year. This is a first pressing of Thelonious Monk and Milt Jackson. This is really interesting though, because it was one of the earliest records to come out on Blue Note. And it has the famous 767 Lexington Avenue, which is the grail of Blue Note record labels. It does look like it says 161. You see, it could say 161, but actually it's 767 Lexington Avenue, which ages it between 1951 and 1957.
Wow.
It is old.
And in terms of where I found this, so I imported this from France.
So think about that. It was made in America in the 50s, somehow found its way to France, and then you imported it to here.
To Liverpool.
Yeah.
And what I think is really cute as well, it does have an original label on the back, which meant at some point it was bought from the disc shop on 1623 Connecticut Avenue in Washington, D.C.
That's crazy.
So that's at the top of the record as well. So it looks like that label's kind of aged the same way the sleeve is aged. I think that's probably its original starting point. So I don't know if that shop's still going.
It's so romantic, I think. Like when you think about the history of records and how many hands it might have gone through and, what this record has seen, like
it's been on a journey all around the world at this point, a couple of different continents.
It could have been part of a love story. It could have, you just never know, right?
Yeah.
It could have been, I get super romantic about these things.
And I think as well with records like this, you do own them, but really you just become like a custodian of it, because if you look after the record, then hopefully it will make its way to someone else's collection at some point, and then it carries on having that lifeline. It's a part of history, and that's why we love records, and also why we kind of prioritize secondhand records in the shop. Although secondhand feels like not the correct term, because this might be 4th, 5th, 6th, 17th hand.
Yeah, you just don't know.
But yeah, it's probably your responsibility as a record collector to try and take best care of them, so then they can kind of live on their life. Not only which is good for the environment, but good for your collection, but also good for music history as well.
So I could talk about this for hours, but ultimately, some of these pressings will go extinct at some point, which is really sad. House fires, floods, people just throwing them in the trash or whatever. Like eventually, certain pressings, they will go extinct and there'll be none left in the world. And that's really sad that certain pressings will just cease to exist. So one of the reasons I think that we started the shop really is to try and encourage the younger crowd to start collecting, so that they can be custodians of these records going forward, and continue to look after them, and hopefully they'll find new audiences and so on and so forth. But that's just a romantic in me. Ultimately, they serve a purpose, their music. And how lovely is it that after all of this time, you can still put that record on and it still works perfectly, still sounds incredible, and, still does what it was originally intended to do, It's a beautiful thing.
So this is the part of the podcast that we like to talk about all the bands and the talent from the city. So we talked a lot about musicians from the US and that period of time, but now we're going to be looking at some of the jazz bands that are kind of playing in Liverpool in and around different venues. So we'll do a whistle-stop tour through this.
Let's go.
So you've got Bop Kabbalah, who are a live psych jazz trip-hop based in Liverpool, sort of like a neo-jazz style.
Nice.
They've got a self-titled album that came out in 2022, so go check that out. Then also you've got Monkey Paw, who are a melodic modern new jazz band, and they draw a lot of inspiration from like Quarto Alto, Alpha Mist, Bad Bad Not Good, all great bands that we listen to quite a lot on in the shop.
Mercury nominated Quarto Alto.
Yeah, completely. So it's nice to see like Mercury have had quite a few like jazz nominations in that category over recent years. So their first single came out in December 2024 called Beam. We'll add that to the playlist so you can check it out. And they've been very active in the Liverpool jazz scene through various projects over the last decade as well. And when I was kind of looking for different bands to share in here, I saw like a lot of the musicians play in different projects. Nice. So very much is part of like jazz musician culture and community. Yeah, lots of different collectives working with each other to create different projects, which is exciting.
Cool.
Also, go check out Blueprint. They are a jazz fusion band and they're currently recording music at the Lightning Cave. They regularly play at Frederick's up on Hope Street.
Nice.
And also the Red Lion as well, which is just literally like 2 minutes from here.
Love the Red Lion.
We love the Red Lion. Really nice jazzy vibes there. Perfect on a Sunday. Of course, we have to mention Nee Maxine, who is an incredible neo-jazz singer and songwriter. Lots of gospel, soul and R&B influence there as well. She has got a debut EP that's coming out later this year.
Nice.
Really excited about that. And then a few different bits of singles that you can go and listen to now. Also runs part of the Wombat Jazz Festival, which took place first last year at St George's Hall.
Nice.
Hopefully it'll be back this year. Looking forward to an announcement from that. And also really cute, they run a thing called the Baby Jazz Club at Sefton Libraries, which is super nice. So I wanted to kind of include that because this episode we're going to be calling Jazzes for Everyone, and it's super nice that kind of looking at that aspect of it, like jazz in libraries for children up in North Liverpool.
I love that.
Very, very cute.
Nice.
And also we've shouted at them before, but I wanted to include it here as well. It's Olveen, who are another great jazz band. And so we'll add all those tracks to our playlist to have a listen to, but that's some of the people in Liverpool that are currently in the jazz scene. I'm sure there are tons more out there, but that's just a little flavour of what's happening in this city in terms of jazz.
Cool. I just wanted to quickly interject and just shout out, and Zanzu, our good friend who we've spoken about before, has a new single out and YouTube videos. So please go and check out Zanzu's Yesterday and Tomorrow music video. Is really cool. Yeah.
Okay, dates for your diary. Here are 3 gigs that we would definitely recommend getting into your diary that are coming up in Liverpool over the next few months. So on Friday, the 28th of March, Static Illusions are playing at the Bakery in Kensington. So that's kind of Scouse, psych fusion that draws a lot of influences from psych and jazz and world music. Wanted to get that in here because obviously if you've been into anything that we've talked about in this episode, you're probably going to be into that. So expect like an exciting night of music and live visuals, and also some deep hypnosis is what they're promising.
That sounds amazing.
Sounds great.
On the next night, so that's Saturday the 29th of March, Fairhurst is at the Cabin, which is at the Casimir Gardens, with Moments, which is a community-focused vinyl party. It's going to be incredible. Free tickets are available on Skiddle, and it's vinyl only all night long. We love Fairhurst.
Yeah.
I've got to shout out Fairhurst. He's one of my favourite DJs in town and a real good friend of the shop. Always been supportive since day one, so big up Fairhurst.
Brilliant. And then looking a little bit forward to the future, in May on the 24th and 25th, there's a brand new music festival happening in Liverpool called Outer Waves. Wow. And that is all about celebrating boundary pushing music, alternative music, lots of underground art, lots of electronic in there.
It's going to be mad.
It's going to be great. It's super exciting to see a new festival happening and something that kind of like captures a genre that isn't really happening in terms of Liverpool's music festivals and gigs and moments like that. So that's going to be happening in North Liverpool. So that's around Invisible Wind Factory and also Make in the North Docks. And so you've got some great bands headlining that. So headlining, you've got Easter Island Head, which are a Liverpool-based band, huge last year. They were top album on The Quietus. So really, really big album last year. Super exciting to see how their journey's been going over the last 12 months. Really hard-working band, great sound. And then you've also got Gong. Yeah, Gong are headlining too, which is going to be great. And then they've also got a whole host of Liverpool bands on that lineup too.
That's really cool.
That's called Outer Waves. Tickets are available now, and you can go and buy those at outer-waves.co.uk.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for listening. That brings us to the end of the Jazz 101 Jazzes for Everyone special.
It's been pretty cool. I feel like there's so much more we could have gone into.
We've definitely already run over the time limit. Yeah. We're really sorry to Second Best Studios who have to edit this, but we appreciate your patience.
Yeah.
If you want to enter the jazz giveaway that we've got, which is the 3 albums and the print by Dorothy, go ahead and drop a comment in the YouTube comments below. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast from, go over to the video on YouTube and watch it there and comment and subscribe. Any more wrap-ups on this jazz episode,
I think
Mark?
that's it. I think we're done. I think we've exhausted it. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks very much.